In a relationship, when is honesty not the best policy? How do you balance what you want versus what you need? And is there something you need to say to your spouse but can't find the right way to say it? If so, then you're in the right place. This is the Lunch with Sandy podcast. With nearly 20 years of marriage under their belts, Terrence and Sandy Jackson discuss a range of topics, provide valuable insights on relationships, and talk about the conversations married couples need to have. So what does lunch have to do with all of this? Well, it's a metaphor for how these conversations originally started. Speaking of conversations, let's get one going. Here's your hosts, Terrence and Sandy.
Hello and welcome to the Lunch with Sandy podcast. I'm Terrence.
And I'm Sandy.
And as usual, we are having the conversations that all couples need to have. How you doing today, Sandy?
I'm doing good.
That's good because, you know, there are certain times where I have to keep you on your toes. And so today is one of those times. But before I put you on point, I'd like to introduce everyone to something that we're going to be doing at the beginning of each show every week. And that is the revelation of the week.
Okay.
Do you want to know what my revelation of the week is?
Oh, yes, please enlighten me.
No, it's not that I have swag. My revelation of the week is everyone's crisis is to some just an inconvenience. And I say that because we had a situation that happened, not here, a situation that happened, and it was a huge crisis to a number of people. But to me and others, it was just an inconvenience.
Well, that's good.
Again, that's one of those things that's perspective. Perspective helps you a lot.
Yes.
Now, back on topic. I have to keep you on your toes.
Well, yeah.
So we're going to switch. We're going to switch things around today.
Okay.
Today, you are going to be leading this topic. Keep you on your toes. This topic started as an idea that you actually came up with, and you actually wrote a little piece for it. So I am going to surrender the floor to you. Take it away.
Oh, why, thank you. Especially for the last minute.
Well, it's not last minute. We had a conversation early in the week, and we talked about whether or not you were going to be doing this particular part of the piece, and you said yes.
Anyhow.
So,
all right. So
there's that recollection, that memory piece.
Well, we all know that my memory chip has been broken.
I'm glad it's on record now.
In some instances.
So you can just do this first part, and then,
okay.
you know.
All right. So basically, do you think it's accurate to say that when you date someone, you're also dating their friends?
Not for me. No, I know that some people feel that way, but if you recall, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but you know, there was a situation. Yeah. There was a situation.
My memory chip ain't that broken.
There was a situation where it depends on. Well, first, no, I don't believe that that's the case. I think that when you're dating someone, you know, the friends can. I'm trying to phrase this the right way. The friends are part of the friends can be part of the equation. But again, I think it's depending on the friends in it. And I think it's depending on the individual. You know, I think from the perspective of, you know, you choose who comes into your life, and you have to understand that, you know, there are people who may be looking out for you, but you don't always know if that's the case 100% of the time. Also, the other part about that is, you know, if you're just getting to know someone, how can your friends actually know who that person is? And so they may steer you in a direction where you might miss out on a good thing.
Yeah, very true. But that's what I mean. Like, you're trying to almost get their friends to like them as well.
Not me. Everybody loves me.
You know, you're unique. You're a unique situation. Very self-confident. But I would think, you know, other people might not be as confident as you, and they want their person that they're dating, friends, to like them as well. So getting to see the dynamic between them and their friends is always interesting, right? Like that person that you are.
I think interesting is an interesting word for that.
Well, you know, you have to also be content with how they treat you in front of their friends. That could actually be, you know, a red flag in some ways.
I think that can be a red flag in some ways. I think the other part about that too is you always have to be careful of how your friends treat that person who you're trying to bring into your life, because that can cause a reaction that you would not normally get. So, outside of the fact of, you want someone to treat you the way you should be treated, but at the same time, certain people aren't going to put up with nonsense that may or may not be coming from those friends.
Right. So it's still interesting to see, if they jump to your defense. Do they let their friends just say whatever they want? I think there's different opportunities there to see how those initial interactions are, but outside of those initial experiences, friends are just another type of relationship in your life.
Yeah, friendship has that ship part of relationship in there, and so it is another type of relationship. So let me ask you a question, right? Based on history and friendships, do you think that men and women can be purely platonic friends?
I'm going to say yes. But then I'm also going to say, but.
Yeah, but.
There's always a but to that situation.
There is always a but. I grew up around mostly strong women. And
That's
I have
married one.
Judgment still out on that. And I have had a number of purely platonic female friends. So the way I answer that question, the answer to that question, I think it is yes, but the but is, let me rephrase that. I think the answer is yes, but it depends on who the person is as a person.
Yeah.
So,
it's not every female male can be platonic friends. But
true.
It can occur is kind of what my thought is around as well.
It can occur. I think because we're not mind readers,
Right.
You never know if someone has an ulterior motive, or even if it was an ulterior motive when that interaction first happened, maybe the way those two came together, each person might have viewed it a little differently, and then it turned into a purely platonic friendship. It might be a situation where one person had, one idea and the other person had a different idea, and that's why the friendship.
And then they just settled on being friends.
And the thing about it is, okay, well, who settled? Because sometimes you settle for somebody else, and if it's a situation where you settle for somebody else, do those feelings, and I'm going to call them feelings because I can't find a better word, do those feelings remain there and they're just kind of biding their time? So, I think it is. I think it's
like, are they your break glass in case of emergency?
Well, it might not be your break glass in case of emergency. It might be they may wait until you break and be there to pick the pieces up. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I think that, there are all these different variables, and depending on those variables and how two people come together, I think that can determine whether or not they can truly be friends. And you can be on one side truly thinking of a person as a platonic friend, but on the other side, again, you don't know what they're thinking. They can be saying all the right things. They can be doing all the right things until they don't.
Well, I feel like there's also certain key things that are almost like, again, using the word red flags, that could potentially shed light on a different scenario. Like they might actually have an ulterior motive. So is that platonic friend saying things of that nature like, oh my goodness, I would never treat you that way. Blank doesn't appreciate.
Well, that's a blatant red flag.
Right.
That's a blatant red flag. And
so.
I'll look at it from another angle and not say that someone has an ulterior motive. I've seen a lot of shows where two individuals they've grown up as friends, from, childhood friends.
Yep.
And I guess you could say old. I just think that the dynamic there in some of those cases, or for what I've seen on TV, you can have a situation again where, because you're so close to someone for so long, that relationship is what it is. And when you're that young, you may not realize what the pull is. But as you get older, you may start to feel that the relationship is a little bit more. You may want that relationship to be a little bit more, and you may not know how to actually approach it with the other individual. So, I mean, that's another scenario where something like that can actually come into play.
Right. Almost like, why are you friends even to begin with? Like, is it where you feel like that person understands you or just knows you so well and things of that nature?
That's that.
And then is that something that you're trying to now look for in a partner that you can't find, to then recognize that maybe it's been there all along with somebody else?
Yeah. It's in friendship. I mean, each person will define friendship a little bit different. And some of the definitions, obviously won't coincide with other people's definitions. But I truly believe that two individuals can, if they're on the same wavelength, and they're both upfront and honest, and they both neither have any ulterior motives, I do think, men and women can be platonic friends. The one thing that, it's not a situation where I say, oh, I have to worry about this, but these coworkers, I'm going to tell you something. So, you spend a very large part of your day at work.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say, oh, I have my work husband or my work wife. And I mean, I ain't got no work wife.
I have a work wife.
Well, listen, I mean, power to you. You tell your work wife she ain't coming here. I can only deal with one of you. But I mean,
she's been here.
All right, Denise. That can be a dangerous game, right? Because when you think about it, why would you call some? And I've heard people say, "Well, that person's just my friend."
Right.
If that person's just my friend, then why aren't they just your friend? Why
them
what did they do to earn the title of work husband or work wife?
I think it's probably because it's the person at work that they're most closest with. Like,
That's a dangerous game, though.
Yeah. Well,
Because again, you don't know what someone is thinking.
Yep.
And listen, I don't want to have to come home one day and find somebody trying to wait for me in the shadows and then have to take them out because they think that if they take me out,
Right.
They're next in line.
So it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, slippery slope.
That's a tongue teaser too. That could, right? But yeah, I think Denise and I plan lunch together. Like, that's my work wife. That's why we bring lunch for each other.
I'm cool with Denise, so I'm not worried about that. But so here's another one, right? So you have the situation where you work with someone all day. Mm-hmm. Then it's much different now, right? Than when we were then there's the whole social media thing.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how you can call someone truly a friend if you've never met them in person in your life.
Oh yeah,
and so now you have this social media. You have a friend on social media who is of the opposite sex, and I don't think you'll ever know what their true motives are. I'm not saying that they have ulterior motives, but if you've never met anyone in person, and listen, there are people out there who, I mean, they will swear by your man that
Yeah. Well,
it is what it
I
is.
have one of those. Not that we communicate as frequently as we used to in the past, but I've known somebody for 30 years, maybe at this point.
Yeah, and you never met him.
I've never met him, but
So I would say, you know what I would call that? A very strong acquaintance, and not even that strong. Because
yeah, we've kind of fell off. But
so if you think about it, right, if you try to define a friend, that friend probably knows your likes and dislikes, probably has an idea of what your routine is, what you look for in certain things, maybe what some of your favorite foods are. And last week we talked about I can't give away what we talked about last week because that episode hasn't aired yet. But you change over time, and if you're not on social media every second of the day, that change is not going to be communicated to this friend.
Well, yeah. In my defense, my social media friend, it's not just via social media. We've had plenty of phone conversations as well. I don't know if you consider that something different, but you kind of get to know somebody having an hour-long conversation with them versus just seeing pictures and
I've found, so people will tell you at work, I don't use the phone.
Well, I know that.
And you know why? Because I've found that people are more truthful to who they are when you're standing in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that your friend is not truthful. I'm talking in general terms. People are more truthful when you're standing in front of them. And so I have situations where
they can really hide their emotions as well.
Yeah. I have friends who I haven't seen in probably 10, 15 years. But if I pick up the phone, it's like I saw them yesterday. But that's not based off me not ever seeing them. That's based off us having that relationship and going to battle and going through those,
It's just at this moment in time now.
Yeah.
You don't see each other as much. No, I get that too. I have some of those as well.
All right. So speaking of friends, I got another question for you. Should partners be best friends?
So this is a funny topic because
no,
just come out and say it. We are not best friends.
We are not best friends. I've made that abundantly clear. I love her to death. We are not best friends.
Well, and I feel the same way. We are friends.
She wanted to be my best friend at one point.
Well, I think as spouses, we're more than best friends. My best friend, I don't want to, go to bed with every night. Like that's
Keep
not
it
how
PG.
that was my PG version. So, it's more. And I think it's knowing each other, on a deeper level, even than as a best friend. But at the same time, we are not each other's best friends. We have actual other best friends.
That's right.
And then
Shout out to my best friend.
Who else are we going to complain about each other?
Well, that's the thing, too.
You are best friends.
Right? So, I mean, I think...
Not that there's much complaining.
No, I mean, I know that there are partners and couples who are best friends. I think the challenge with that becomes, I think it's more difficult to maintain your identity outside of a relationship if everything you do is with the person you're in a relationship with.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying for me personally, I have to be me, and I need my existence outside of that partnership, that relationship. And I think it's more of a challenge it'd be more of a challenge if that wasn't a case. And then to what you said from the perspective of how can you get an unbiased opinion, right?
Yeah.
From your best friend if
they're also your spouse.
If the opinion that you need is based on the relationship that you're in or that person who is your best friend that you're in a relationship with.
Agreed. And well, personally, I think we are stronger together because we also know how to be apart from one another.
I think the relationship is stronger for that. I also think that, again, you hit on this earlier. Sometimes we have disagreements. We can agree to disagree. But if you don't have an outlet, and I don't like you putting my business in the street, so you keep that stuff to yourself. But if you don't have an outlet or someone to confide in who is going to not have your back, but listen when you need someone to listen.
Yep.
Outside of that, relationship, then that's only going to hurt you because, again, that stuff is going to build up because you don't have an outlet. And if that outlet is your best friend who is your partner, then I don't know how receptive or how much worth you're going to get out of confiding in that person, or if that's going to actually get anything off your chest, because again,
Agreed.
that might lead to some conflict. Now, that's what we talked about on
Yes.
the last episode that was published.
Well, yeah, your partner can't be the best friend. Now, if you feel like you have multiple best friends, then that's, I think, different, right? Because you have multiple people to fulfill certain.
Doesn't the term best?
I know,
I mean, doesn't
I
the
know,
term
but-
best mean,
Right,
you know,
I'm
you
just-
have someone who is better than everyone else? You are the best friend.
Well, that's my opinion, but I feel like other people feel differently. You know, that they might equate people on the same level and think that they have multiple best friends.
So I look at it from this perspective. I got a band of brothers. I got a group of individuals. Listen, shout out to my man, you know, Ant Sanders, Scott, Tunde, Larry, Thurb, KK. Listen, if I left anybody off, I didn't do it on purpose. I got a band of brothers.
Yeah.
And, you know, that band of brothers, for the most part, you know, it trumps a best friend. Because now, you know, I got a village, pretty much. To use that term, it takes a village. You know, I got a very strong core group of individuals who, if I needed to confide in, you know, if I needed to, you know, now, if I needed them to ride with me, I know they would. I don't know if I would take all of them. More people, more, you know, opportunities to get caught. So that's where, you know, you may want to say, listen, I got to hit up the best friend.
Right.
Because you got to move in stealth.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything illegal over here, so we ain't got to worry about
You
it.
just need that one person that's going to pick up that shovel with you.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
You can
that
slip
one
through the
person who
darkness.
has already dug the hole. You ain't got to worry about them picking up the shovel. The hole is dug.
Right.
So,
That one person you can call and be like, I need you. And they're here within an
yes,
instant.
yes.
And, you know, sometimes, like you said, that is multiple people. But I feel like, yeah, the best friend has just, I don't know, they just slightly edge out the others, you know?
Yeah, it's that one thing. Like, so if you let too many people in on certain information, it's not that they're going to dime or talk about it.
Right.
But under certain conditions, they may be forced to actually crack. None of my people will crack. But at the same time,
No.
the more people know,
Yeah.
that's more exposure.
Yeah.
Now, if you got one person, you ain't got to, you know, you only have to worry about the one person. But if that one person is, you know, legit,
Yep.
you ain't got to worry about that one person.
Yes, definitely. The best friend is like the ride or die, the one that has penetrated the wall. That I mean, because I don't tell everybody, I don't let everybody.
The face I made was just based off the statement that you made. I mean, the phrasing that you're using over there. Listen, keep it PG, Sandy. I don't know what's going on over there.
You know, no, just like for me, I'm not that type of person. You know, I might divulge certain things, but there's not many people that I'm completely open and honest with 100% of the time. And that person is the one that I am completely 100% open and honest all the time. Whether it's my own feelings or perspective on their situation, whatever it is, I know that no matter what I say, whether it's about myself or their situation, that it's always comes with good intention, and that's never questioned.
Okay, so speaking of good intentions, I'm going to switch it a little bit. This is a little bit of a different question. Should parents be friends with their kids?
Not under the age of, we'll say 22.
Listen, so I will say this. You know, you say not under the age of 22, but I'm positive, I'm 100% positive that before either of our oldest daughters were 22, you were hitting that friendship angle.
No, I was still the parent at that point in time. It wasn't until they move out and are living on their own, I feel like is more where it can potentially become a friendship rather than a parent-child relationship.
So now here's where you know, y'all gonna say snitches get stitches, but I'm gonna snitch on Sandy right now because at one point you were taking that friend angle because you felt that if you were more of the friend, they would divulge information to you. And we've had this conversation. This is one of those things where your memory might not be too great, but we had this conversation when you said, oh, well, you know, if I'm more of a friend, they might divulge information to me if they wouldn't as a parent?
Well, so no, so it is very tightrope to walk.
Is there? Listen,
For sure. Well, we'll finish up this and then I'll go to my other thought. But there are at later ages, it's you want your children to be comfortable coming to you with certain things, and not just feel like you're going to be the parent who's going to reprimand them, so that they don't potentially put themselves in situations that you don't want them to be in. So that was maybe more of the angle, but I was still always the parent. I was just trying to be more of an open parent. So when they're talking about certain things, it's not like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's wrong. This and that,
So I'm not going to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do. But what do I tell the kids all the time?
Yeah.
Say it. You know what it is?
Which one? There's so many.
I will never be your friend.
Yeah. Okay.
I will always be your father.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I've said that to my girls at a very young age. I will always be your father, because as a parent, I feel I have a responsibility to not just teach them about the world, but show them how to move within the world. And I believe in tough love, and I believe in accountability and responsibility. And when they've done something that I did not agree with, I have never been shy about actually telling them, hey, listen, I think you're wrong. I don't agree with that. And I tell them all the time, I'm not going to be your friend. Now, from the perspective of them taking that and coming to me, they come to me all the time.
Yeah, well, that was based on my own childhood is really where that frame of thought came from, because, as a child, I was not whatsoever, comfortable going to my mother about anything. And I got myself in very many bad situations. So it made me question maybe if I could have gone to her and got a womanly perspective, even though she's my mother, not just my mother, somebody that I could talk to, would I have made some of those choices and got myself into those predicaments?
I understand that. And I guess, for another day, we can have that topic. We can have a discussion on, what it means or how to go about being a better parent. I just feel that there's challenges when you try to be a friend, because when you try to be a friend, there are certain things that the child expects you to let slide or not hold them accountable for. And in some cases, there are some parents who actually do that. I think the real issue is, life is about consequences. You make choices, and those choices have consequences. And if the choices that my children make are based off me not doing my job as a parent, and I'm not saying that if you're your child's friend, you can't be their parent. From my perspective, my role is to be their parent. And then sometimes that means, making hard decisions and explaining to them, hey, listen, this is why this is going to happen this way.
So I will say too, I don't think there's anything wrong with a child thinking that their parent is their friend. I think that's wonderful, because that child feels open and that they can go to their parent as a friend and talk to them. I think the concern for me is more, especially at a younger age, is when the parent is saying that their child is their friend, and sometimes even best friends. There's no maturity level there for somebody to be an adult's friend.
I look at it from this perspective. I mean, a parent can say whatever they want to say. I'm not really going to get into that. I look at it from the perspective of, as a parent, there are certain boundaries that you need
Absolutely.
to set. There are certain situations that, we had a conversation where we talked about how your kids tend to mimic and pick up characteristics and traits that you display. And as a parent, I want to make sure that they see me as that individual who is going to hold them accountable when they need to be held accountable, but at the same time displays all the love, all the encouragement, all the confidence that they need when times get rough. I think the biggest thing as a parent that we have to do, it's not just to provide for your children, but it's to prepare them for the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as if you're taking that approach to being their friend, I don't know if you can prepare them for everything, right? If you're in a situation where your child sees you as an equal,
Yes.
the information that you need to provide to them, relate to them, may not be heard.
Yep.
And sometimes whatever you say,
Sometimes it's not heard regardless.
It's not heard regardless.
But I feel like you almost like plant a seed, because I remember that.
Well, no,
once with even Shayna, that we were constantly, the same thing being said to her over and over again. And then she was off at college and she made the exact same comment about someone she knew that was 100% you.
Yeah. And then the thing about it is that you do plant the seed, but at the same time, you get to a point where you understand that some lessons your kids have to learn on their own.
Yeah.
So as a parent, you prepare them and you let them know, hey, listen, this is what you should do, or you should be doing this, or you need to do this. Regardless of whether or not they're going to accept that information, what I've found is this. Mm-hmm. It always comes back. And once they learn that lesson, they say, yep, I should have listened to you. And I think that's them coming back to their parents and saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily if they would come back to a friend and say that.
No, you're probably right. And I think obviously there's some level of respect that is expected for a parent
100%.
that you're not going to have towards a friend, And then, I don't know, there's just like, as a parent, you just want your kids to know that you always have their best interest at heart. That might not always happen with all of your friends, especially at a younger age where friends kind of more come and go, but your parents are constant, right? So that's like how do you put your parent and the child, the child, how do they put their parent and their friend on the same level? Like, that's just, I don't know.
I'm gonna sum it up.
Cautious.
I'm gonna sum it up for you with this statement right here. Mm-hmm. So, do you remember the year where for my birthday, Shannon gave me this jar, and the jar was painted? It had the Superman emblem on it.
I remember it.
And it had all the reasons why I love you.
Yes.
One of the first pieces of paper that I pulled out, she said, one of the reasons why I love you is because you've always told me I'm your father, not your friend. So that stuck with her. And obviously it had an impact on her. So with that, what I say is this. The goal of children is to challenge their parents. I mean, the challenges are going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Kids get to an age where they're going to make their own decisions. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you want to try to instill in them, strong values. You want to instill in them responsibility, and you want them to understand that, hey, listen, your actions have consequences.
And accountability.
If you can do that, they may not always do what you actually want them to do, but they're going to come to a point where they realize, hey, listen, mom and dad were right about this. I didn't listen. I should have listened. You know what I mean? So with that being said, friendship altogether is just another relationship. The dynamic between, the different partners is based on, who those individuals are that are involved in it. We can ask these questions. Can men and women be friends? Should partners be friends? Should you be friends with your kids? It's all relationships. And I think that the answer to those questions are really based on the individuals who are involved in those relationships. With that said, thanks for listening. Again, you can always follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Lunch with Sandy. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
That's it for this week's episode of the Lunch with Sandy podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback and comments on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Lunch with Sandy. And be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate and review us. Thanks again for listening to the Lunch with Sandy podcast.